Hello everybody! Today we're going to continue working with fractions and placing fractions on the number line. And last week we had a really tricky lesson where we were trying to place fractions on a number line when our endpoints were no longer 0 and 1. So we're just going to kind of keep going with that and keep practicing this concept and this strategy. So what I'd like to talk about today is if you are given some fractions and they ask you to place those fractions on the number line, I want you to know how to go about that. So let's say they ask you to place the fractions 5/3, 13/3, 8/3, 13/3. Let's see. 13/3 isn't going to be there, so we're going to make this 11/3 and 7/3 on the number line. Whoops. Okay, so let's say they've asked you to place these on the number line. I want to talk about the process of doing that. So we have a number line already set up with our whole numbers. Remember, a whole number is the numbers that we've been working with all the way through since kindergarten. Those numbers that don't have a fractional part. So a whole cookie, a whole granola bar or candy bar, right? We're not talking about half a cookie. Half a cookie is a fraction, not a whole number. Okay, so half is a fraction. 1, 2, 28, 37, 1,453,000. Those are all whole numbers because we're not talking about any parts. Okay, so our whole numbers are already listed, and just pay attention that we're starting at 1 this time and not 0. Okay, so when you're asked to place some fractions on the number line, the first thing I want you to look at is your denominator. Remember, the denominator means how many parts each whole is broken into, right? So in this case, our fractional unit that we're working with is thirds. All of them have a 3 on the denominator, which means we're breaking every whole into thirds. Now, how many thirds we'll find out, and we'll take a look at our numerator that talks about how many thirds in a minute. But that's a really key piece because that's going to tell you on your number line how much to break each whole into. So if I'm looking here, here is one whole because it goes from 1 to 2, and that's one whole jump. So I'm going to break each whole into thirds. So I've taken that whole and broken it into 3 parts. I've taken this whole and broken it into 3 parts. And I've taken this whole into 3 parts. Okay? So I've started by making all my thirds. Now I can start to label and I can start to think about where I would place these fractions on the number lines. So again, looking here that we're starting at the whole number of 1, how many thirds makes one whole? Well, if we have one whole cookie in thirds and we have all of it, we have 3 thirds because 3/3 makes one whole. Now we can continue to label. Now you have a choice. I strongly suggest you just go ahead and label all the points, but you don't necessarily have to. If I know I'm looking for 5/3, now that I've got 3/3 labeled, I can kind of count on. So I can say, okay, here's 3/3, 4/3, 5/3. So I know this point here must be 5/3. And I don't have to draw those jumps. I just have to make sure I draw my point and to label where it is. Okay? So I can continue to count on. I like the idea of labeling all because then you don't accidentally skip your whole number. Some kids will do that and they'll write 6/3 here, but that's not the case. 6/3 is equal to 2 wholes. So I'm going to keep counting 7/3, 8/3, 9/3, 10/3, 11/3, and 12/3. Okay, and now I could start to find those points on the number line. Now I'm going to even do a little matching here. So I'm going to do this. Here's 5/3. Now I clearly know where 11/3 is. Here. 8/3 is here. 7/3 is here. Okay, it's very easy to find the points once you've placed all your hash marks. Now, I've had kids who think that they are really good and they take their number line that's like this 1, 2, 3, 4, and they just kind of start guessing. And they're like, well, I think 5/3 is here, and I think 11/3 is going to be somewhere over here. And then they're not very accurate. Okay, I don't want you doing it like that. You need to label, you need to write all of your hash marks. So draw all of your hash marks. You don't necessarily have to label every single hash mark like I did on this row here in the red, but you do need to make all of these hash marks. And that, I mean these guys. You need to partition it. If you don't use those hash marks, your partitions are not going to be very accurate and it's going to be wrong. Okay, so make sure you make those hash marks. Let's take a look at one more example. Let's say we have this number line here, and let's say that this time we're going to start with the number 2, and we'll go 3, and we'll go 4. And let's say they ask you to place the fractions 8/6, 12/6, 18/6, actually, 26, and 13/6. Whoops, I wrote 13/3, 13/6, and I can't do 8/6. Actually, I just realized that. And we'll do 23/6. Okay, so once again, your first step is to look at your denominator. What fractional unit are we talking about? We're talking about sixths. Every single whole is broken into 6 equal parts. So the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is go and break up each of my wholes into 6 equal parts. And for sixths, I like to do halves and then each half into thirds. That way I see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts, nice and easily. Okay, so I'm putting my hash marks in. That's a given. You must do that step. Okay, and you should label your first whole number with an equal fractional unit. So how many sixths does it take to make 2 wholes? Well, again, if you need to draw a little picture, here's 2 wholes. If I divide each of them into 6 equal parts, how many sixths do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I know that right here is equal to 12 sixths. Then I can keep on counting. So I am going to just label them all. I find that a lot easier. Then I'm not going to make mistakes later and have to erase everything. Okay? If you choose not to do that, I strongly suggest you at least put your whole number equivalents in, meaning find the fraction that's equal to your whole numbers, those ones that I am boxing. So think about, okay, 2 wholes is 12 sixths. So 3 wholes would be another 6. So it would be 18 sixths and then 24 sixths. At least label those. Then it's easy peasy to go ahead and mark your points. 23 sixths? Well, that's right here. No problem. 18 sixths? Well, that's right here. Remember to place your point on the number line. It doesn't have to be ginormous, but it does need to be seen, and it should be on the line itself. Here's 20 sixths and 13 sixths. Okay? So that's what you're going to go do today. Make sure you're thinking about what fractional unit they're asking for and make those hash marks and break that up first. Then go ahead and start labeling and placing those fractions on the number line. Good luck. Have fun. Let me know if you need any help.